In the world of dirt racing, Rico Abreu has a stacked resume to say the least, with multiple big sprint car and midget wins and championships. Most notably, he won the Chili Bowl in back-to-back years, both in 2015 and 2016, and prior to that, he won the USAC National Midget Series Championship in 2014. But what many dirt racing fans and NASCAR fans alike both forget is that Rico shifted his focus to NASCAR right around that time in the midst of his midget racing success. Coming right off his USAC championship, Rico was hired by H. Scott Motorsports to compete full-time in the then K&N Pro Series East. As he was born with achondroplasia, a form of dwarfism, his cars required a few modifications in the steering column, pedals, and switches to bring them closer in. But other than that, Rico was able to compete under the same conditions as everyone else, and he didn't face any disadvantage. And upon making his K&N Pro Series debut at New Smyrna, Rico became the first driver, and is of now the only driver with dwarfism to compete in a NASCAR race. Speaking of his debut, Rico made it to the finish in 17th place and one lap down after starting in 6th. For the majority of the race, he ran just outside the top 10, but on the final lap, he and Anthony Kumpen got together and both spun out, leading to the less than desirable result. But also worth mentioning is that the East Series was much more competitive back then than it is now, as in 2015 its average field size was 27.2, whereas this past season in 2023 not only was significantly lower at 20.1, but there were also significantly fewer cars that could go up and compete for wins. In the next two races at Greenville Pickens and Bristol, Rico brought to the finish clean with a solid P9 and P10, but then in the fourth race at Iowa, he crashed out late in the going. This time it was not of his own making, but rather while running in 9th place with 8 laps to go, he got loose off a bump from Noah Gragson and backed hard into the outside wall. For Rico, it was looking to be his best race yet, as while he had already finished inside the top 10 in a standalone East Series race, the Iowa race was a combination event between the K&N East and West Series. So, with a total field size of 39 cars and all the best drivers from both series, the race was easily the most competitive one of Rico's asphalt career thus far. After a mediocre day at the Bowman Gray Stadium, Rico won his first pole award at Langley Speedway. However, he drifted back through the pack as the night went on to match his best finish of 9th place. But then, the next week at Columbus Motor Speedway, really out of nowhere, it all came together for the 23-year-old asphalt rookie. Starting off the race weekend with his second ever and second consecutive pole award, Rico held the lead in the opening laps this time around, but eventually lost the lead on lap 8 to fellow rookie Grant Quinlan. Quinlan, the 16-year-old out of Ontario, Canada, was actually making his East Series debut with a Rhett Jones racing team. But after qualifying an impressive 3rd place, he was surprisingly Abreu's biggest threat all night long. Abreu and Quinlan eventually swapped the lead 8 times before the race was over, but leading the final 36 laps was Rico Abreu, who went on to park his number 98 GoPro machine in victory lane in only his 7th start. By winning over many future NASCAR stars such as William Byron, Justin Haley, Austin Hill, and Kaz Gralla, Rico proved not only that he was a quick learner and could get the job done, but that he was deserving of a shot on NASCAR's national stage. Although Rico didn't score any more wins that season, he had a few more memorable performances, such as a runner-up finish at the Motordrome Speedway and a 3rd place run in the season finale at Dover, in which he led 10 laps. But besides his win at Columbus, Rico's best performance in his rookie year came in the second East and West combination race at Iowa Speedway. After putting together a solid race prior to being wrecked out back in the spring, Rico came back with vengeance, qualifying 3rd place overall and first of the East Series drivers, before even challenging for the win early on. After taking the lead from Brandon McReynolds on lap 29, Abreu went on to lead the next 23 laps before eventually getting overtaken back by McReynolds, who dominated the remainder of the event and made history by being the first driver to sweep the 2 East-West combination races. Unfortunately, there's no footage of this race available on YouTube, or at least anywhere I could find it, so I'm not going to be able to go into much further detail for this race. But regardless, Rico finished the year 5th in the East Series point standings ahead of 7 other full-time drivers, including Justin Haley and Kaz Gralla. Overall, it was an incredible rookie season, especially for a driver with such little stock car and asphalt racing experience. In fact, Rico performed so well that following the end of the East Series season, he received an offer from NTS Motorsports to drive in the final 2 Truck Series races that year, behind the wheel of their number 31 truck. Starting with the Lucas Oil 150 at Phoenix, Abreu's debut did not go according to plan, as while he qualified at a respectable 14th place, he became a victim to a restart crash in just lap 45. On the restart, the 15 truck of Mason Mingus locked his brakes and got up into the 5 of Dalton Sargent. It went spinning down the track, leaving nowhere to go for Abreu or the 11 of Ben Kennedy behind him. Ultimately, the damage was enough to take Abreu out of the race and relegate him to a disappointing 28th place finish. But thankfully, his next race and the last of the Truck Series season at Homestead went much more smoothly, as he again qualified in 14th and this time brought it home even one spot better in 13th. With his incredible adaptability being recognized and rewarded accordingly, that off-season, Rico was signed to join ThorSport Racing full-time for the 2016 season. And he'd have big shoes to fill, as he'd be taking over for Johnny Sauter, who, having been with the team since 2009, had picked up 10 wins and was coming off his third consecutive fourth-place points finish for them. Rico's expectations weren't that high, of course, since he was still a rookie, but since he was in top-caliber equipment, he would need to build off his performance from the previous year and at least contend for a win or two if he wanted to continue progressing in NASCAR. Unfortunately, in the season opener at Daytona, Rico wasn't able to build off much of anything, as in his first superspeedway race, he ran in the middle of the pack all night long before getting caught up in the big one with 8 laps to go. He almost got through with salvageable damage, but a late hit from the 51 of Daniel Suarez was enough to take Abreu out of the race. In the next 2 races, Rico put together his best truck races yet, with a P11 at Atlanta and a P10 at Martinsville. In both of those races, he improved significantly as the race went on to finish better than where he qualified and better than where he was running for most of the race. This was exactly what the ThorSport team was looking for in their inexperienced driver, but over the next 3 races, he suffered a bit of a rough stretch. First at Kansas, Rico got overly tight on just the second lap, causing the rear of his truck to snap around and tag the outside wall. While the damage appeared pretty significant, the rear quarter panel and deck lid area of the trucks are luckily the most forgiving, and his crew was able to get him back out on track without even losing a lap. But still, the truck was obviously not 100%, and Rico fought to the finish 3 laps down in 22nd place. Then the next week at Dover, Rico once again had his finish suffer due to damage, as after qualifying 13th and making his way into 7th place, he got spun into the wall by the 41 of Ben Rose while trying to make the pass for 6th. This time, the wreck was in no way Rico's fault, nor was it intentional by Rose, but it was just yet another setback for the 98 team. The crew was able to repair the truck, however, and Rico fought back to another 22nd place finish. After those 2 races, the team was looking to bounce back at Charlotte, and with 20 laps to go, it was looking like they'd done just that. Thus far, it had easily been Rico's best Truck Series performance, as he had ran inside the top 5 and was currently seated in 7th right before his scheduled green flag pit stop. But having very little experience with green flag stops, he learned the hard way just how strict they can be, as he was penalized for his splitter being inches outside his pit box, and he was required to come back down for a pass-through penalty. With the race going green until the end, Rico had no chance to make up for his lost time and wound up a very disappointing 20th place. After a few weeks to regroup, Rico came to Texas Motor Speedway the next time out, knowing that he could challenge for a win. Though the finishes didn't show it, if he had kept the truck clean and hadn't gotten any penalties, he most likely would have finished top 10 in every race thus far. His truck certainly had the speed, and he was certainly getting more out of it than most would have reasonably expected him to. Plus, Texas is a track that is shaped and driven pretty similarly to Charlotte, so this race was really all about repeating what they did well for most of the day at Charlotte and eliminating any late race mistake. After qualifying in 13th, he picked up a few positions right away and settled in the back half of the top 10 for most of the evening. Lining up in 9th place for what would be the final restart, it looked like Rico was in for a solid and much-needed top 10 finish if he could just run his own race. But once again, that would not be the case, but this time for the better. Over the course of the 43-lap run to the finish, whatever adjustments his crew put in under the caution must have kicked in, because one by one, he began picking off positions, first cracking the top 5 with 25 to go, and then even passing the dominant driver of the day, Matt Crafton, for 2nd place with 4 laps to go. Just like that, in a single green flag run, the rookie had gone from the back half of the top 10 to hunting down the leader for his first career win. At the time of his pass on Crafton, Abreu was a little over half a second back from the leader, William Byron, but coming to the line with 2 to go, he had put himself within striking distance.
2 laps remaining.
Good run right there.
William Byron, the 18-year-old from Charlotte.
Ooh, Rico's in the fence. Rico's in the wall.
Oh, he's in the wall.
Yeah, he got up behind him.
By 4.
Little arrow push, and it put him right in the fence.
What a race-winning move by William Byron to take that high line away from Rico.
Stay in green.
Rico still has his foot in it.
The white flag. One to go. William Byron trying to hold on for the win.
Oh,
Rico's in the wall again.
He probably blew that right front
Probably
tire.
cut a tire down.
What a shame.
Yeah, the right front tire looks like it's down on Rico's truck. He loses a spot to Johnny Sauter right there.
William Byron is bringing it home. The teenager is doing it again. His second career win. William Byron victorious at Texas.
Rico's got nothing to be ashamed of, folks. That was an incredible drive he had.
Not at all, but what a great job by that 18-year-old William Byron.
After pushing a little too hard and getting into the wall, Rico ruined his shot of the win, but was at least shaping up to bring home a second-place finish before his tire went down and got him into the wall again on the final lap. All in all, he still scored a 9th-place finish, which was his best yet, but of course it was a major letdown compared to what it could have been. The next 3 races were all rather clean for Rico, other than a spin at Kentucky, but with a P18 at Iowa, a P14 at Gateway, and a P15 at Kentucky, there was once again a lot more to be desired. But the 11th race of this season was perhaps the most anticipated for Rico and the 98 team, as the dirt race at Eldora Speedway would in theory play right into his advantage. In fact, with his early promise in the Truck Series and his many years of dirt racing accolades, he came in as a favorite to win along with fellow dirt and asphalt racers Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, and Tyler Reddick. But surprisingly, he struggled a lot in his heat race, falling back early and then causing a wreck with 4 laps to go. In his defense, his truck was visibly way too tight, but still, it was a pretty bad rookie mistake, and afterwards, Travis Coapel in the 50 truck was understandably upset. Thankfully for Rico, his team was able to get his truck handling noticeably better than the last chance qualifier, in which he finished second place to Cody Coughlin. Still, by not directly advancing from his heat race, Rico lined up all the way back in 27th for the actual race and struggled early on to get through traffic. He even went a lap down less than 20 laps in, but thanks to a debris caution on lap 29, he was able to get it back via the free pass. Then disaster almost struck again when on that restart he was penalized for passing before the start-finish line, which required him to come down pit road for a pass-through penalty. At a short track like Eldora, that would cost him at least 2 laps and all but put him out of contention given how many other drivers were also a lap down. But luckily for him, and unluckily for many others, a massive pileup formed entering turn 3, bringing out the caution again. This saved Rico because in NASCAR's rules, if the caution comes out before a driver is able to serve their pass-through penalty, the penalized driver will instead only have to start at the rear on the ensuing restart. And since he was already near the back, the penalty effectively made no difference. After that near disaster, Rico didn't make up much more ground and stayed in the back half of the top 20 up until nearly 50 laps to go when he finally cracked the top 10. Then with the help of a couple late race cautions as well, he just kept moving forward similarly to how he did at Texas, picking off position by position to finally settle into 3rd place, where he would finish right behind Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell. So after a long race of attrition that saw him have to rebound from an ill-handling truck and even a mistake of his own, Rico ended up with his career best finish. Again, for a rookie driver, that is exactly what a big team like ThorSport Racing is looking at as potential. The next race out of Pocono, the 98 team had another strong run with a P6, but after that, they had a pretty rough stretch, and this time, much longer than the previous ones. Be it due to crashes, mechanical failures, or just overall mediocre performance, Rico finished all of the next 6 races outside the top 10, with a best of 13th coming at Michigan. He snapped this streak with a great 4th place run at Talladega, but after that, he really had no notable performances for the rest of the year. As in the remaining 4 races, he made it to the finish without any major problems of his own, but out of them, he only mustered up a best finish of 11th at Phoenix, the same race in which he completely dumped the 24 of Kaz Gralla. So looking back at his rookie season, Rico Abreu started off great by showing fairly consistent top 10 speed and even winning speed late in the going at Texas. But after 2 great runs at Eldora and Pocono at around halfway in the season, the team just fell apart. It's hard to point a finger at exactly one problem or another from an outside perspective, but overall the 98 truck just did not have the pace it did earlier in the season, as other than their top 5 at Talladega, which is really an exception of a track in regard to measuring a team's performance, they did not score a single other top 10 finish for the entire second half of the season. And again, it's not like the driver or the team were making a ton of on-track mistakes, the truck was just simply not as fast. Most notably at Texas, where Rico was contending for the win on the final lap of the spring race, he was barely even a contender for the top 10 in the fall. Well, he actually was running in 10th, but he got a penalty on pit road during the final caution and had to fight his way back to finish 12th. Overall, Rico scored 2 top 5s, 5 top 10s, and a 15.9 place average finish in his rookie year, which was good enough for a 13th place finish in the final standings. Despite the worsening results in the second half of his season, those are still pretty respectable stats for a rookie, even at a top team like ThorSport. And that's before even considering his complete lack of stock car and asphalt racing experience prior to 2015. So, having at least shown that he could contend for wins and run inside the top 10 fairly regularly despite being so new to asphalt racing, ThorSport could see that he had great potential and they were likely willing to bring him back for a second season. But unfortunately, due to a lack of sponsorship, that was simply not able to happen. Throughout his entire rookie season, Rico was sponsored jointly by Safelite Auto Glass and Curb Records. But come 2017, Safelite opted to sponsor his teammate Ben Rhodes, and Curb Records is owned by one of ThorSport Racing's co-owners, Mike Curb, so presumably the team wasn't able or willing to fund Rico out of pocket. The team was at least able to give him a one-off race at Eldora in 2017, and after slight involvement in an early race pileup, Rico made his way up to 7th place. But then, with just under 50 laps to go, he got into the wall on his own and cut his right rear tire down, forcing him to come down pit road and lose multiple laps. The team then just pulled off the track under the next caution and seemingly gave up, as the official reason listed for his DNF was a crash. Even on the ThorSport team's official website, they claim a flat tire ended his night early, although they had clearly already repaired it. But after pulling behind the wall at Eldora, Rico Abreu would never make another start in NASCAR, and instead shift his focus back to midget and sprint car racing on the dirt. So, was he really that bad? I've already given most of my opinions on him, but no, he was definitely not a bad driver by any stretch of the imagination. He came into the K&N East Series having no background in that type of racing and won a race in his first season, before immediately moving to the Truck Series the next year and putting up respectable numbers for a top caliber team. Before making this video, I was actually under the impression that he did worse in NASCAR, but now after looking over all of his races, it's pretty clear that he had great potential and that he was only stopped from continuing his NASCAR career due to sponsorship. But yeah, that's all for today's video. Thank you all for watching, and if you did enjoy it, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos just like these. Also, let me know down in the comments what you think about how Rico Abreu did in NASCAR. Was he underrated or not? For my next videos, I might do a few more top 10s over the 2023 season, and I have a new series on the way as well, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, that's about everything. So until next time, peace out.